I also wish to welcome all other eminent personalities, guests, associates, and friends of our Institute at this event. I want to thank you all for coming, share experiences, and contribute meaningfully to this discourse. As part of measures taken by the Institute to continue to operate and realize mission and vision without contravening the lockdown social distancing guidelines by the government, we have deliberately adopted a key platform such as this to provide services and remain relevant in the scheme of things. And therefore, particularly related to us that this theme of this event has been carefully chosen to reflect on the impact of COVID-19, which the entire world is contending with. The ravaging impact of coronavirus has adversely affected the global economy and businesses. And just like any other business sector in the world, the aviation and tourism industry has been one of the most impacted sectors. Our government has studied fit to shut down all international entry into the country in order to prevent the spread through importation of this virus. As a result, there are growing concerns about the impact of this action on the aviation industry, and this has caused tremendous disruption to air travel, loss of approximately almost $461 million in revenue and 24,000 jobs. With the need of social distancing and stringent health measures that have been badged the cost of operations, and if and when the airlines operate again, medium daunting. The loss of airlines across the world, and indeed grant handling companies, including Nigeria, are laying off staff, closing our businesses, and in fact are filing for bankruptcy. In the light of this present reality, therefore, IoD Nigeria, through its tourism and hospitality forum, bringing stakeholders in the aviation industry, tourism and hospitality industry together to debate and discuss these issues with a view to highlighting the holistic impact of the pandemic on the aviation sector, discuss emerging, evolving, or possible trends that will shape the future of world of travel, consider governance, ethical, and policy issues to be addressed in the wake of emerging trends. Our distinguished directors, leaders, and ladies and gentlemen, I wish to absolutely encourage all of us to be open-minded about this topic, participate actively in this webinar, so as to take advantage of the enormous lot of experience of our panelists and indeed our moderators. I thank the chairman and members of the Tourism and Hospitality Committee of the Institute, as well as the management of the Secretariat, for organizing this webinar. So thank you all for your attention and wish you fruitful deliberations today. Please continue to keep safe. Continue to keep safe and healthy during this perilous period of the pandemic in our country. God bless you all, and I wish you a very happy day. Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Right, so thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you very much for the introduction to the webinar, and also you have also introduced all the members of the panel. So my job is done. So without much ado, because this webinar is really packed, we have 6 speakers, and we really want to do justice to having them on board. I'll just hand the panelists over to the moderator, Mr. Bankole Bernard, right away. Mr. Bankole Bernard, please, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you very much, Chairman of the Tourism and Hospitality Committee. It's a great pleasure having high-powered delegation to pilot this particular scheme. Most importantly, the eminent people that are present here, from the DG to Mr. Gabriel Olowo, to the country manager of Etihad, to to Captain Sanusi. What we've actually done on this platform is to bring different people within the aviation sector all together to talk from their perspective on how we're going to face this pandemic that's crippled the entire world, you know, and the way forward for us, for the world as well as Nigeria. I'm sure that there are a lot of people looking forward to hear from experts like you. So without saying too much, I'm just going to go a bit into why we're here. Now, the impact of COVID-19 on the aviation sector, the way forward. Significantly, the aviation sector in 2019 had a 3.5% growth. And consecutively, it's been growing. Some of the numbers that I have here is that this particular industry had an 8.9 trillion contribution to the world's GDP. That's tourism, travel and tourism had 8.9 trillion contribution to the world GDP. It had 10.3% global GDP growth with 330 million jobs, which means 1 out of every 10 jobs comes from this sector. I go further. 1.7 trillion visitors exports, that is 1.7 visitors exports, 6.8 of total exports, 28.3 of global service exports is what this industry controls. 948 billion capital investment in this particular sector. Aviation, critical driver of the economic growth and the backbone of many economies all around the world, and Nigeria cannot be exempted. So which means that this particular sector can never be underlooked. The grounding of all the airlines has shown to the world the importance that this particular sector holds. The emergence of the COVID-19 took a turn on everybody. As it stands, we have cases of 283,000 plus deaths. We have over 4.1 million cases of COVID-19 recorded. So it's in no doubt that this has really affected the entire world, including Nigeria that has lost 143 people. The impact of this is so enormous that IATA, in one of his documents, stated that it's government of Europe, Africa, and Middle East for emergency government intervention as airline fights for survival due to the collapse of air travel as a result of corona crisis. Owing to the severity of travel restriction and the expected global recession, IATA now estimates that industry passenger revenue could drop by $314 billion in 2020, a 55% decline compared to 2019, as earlier mentioned. The Tokyo Olympic have been delayed and will now commence on the 23rd of July 2021. The Dubai Expo and the Expo 2020 was due to begin on 20th of October 2020. However, organizers are set to discuss a delay of the event to possible spring 2021, or even proposing a delay proposing delay of the event until the same time next year. EasyJet, one of the airlines, has grounded its entire fleet of travel restrictions imposed by government globally to the coronavirus pandemic. It has cancelled most of the services, but has been running rescue flights to repatriate Britons stranded abroad. The number of Americans filing initial application for unemployment and benefits increased significantly to about 33 million till date, offering evidence that coronavirus is causing widespread damage to the economy. The pound fell to its lowest level on record against the currencies of the UK major trading partners as the effect of coronavirus continued to rip through markets. The oil industry is not left out. The oil industry faces its most difficult challenges of the past 100 years. Prices are roughly halved from the beginning of March as airlines have been grounded and millions of commuters are in lockdown throughout the world. With the scale of demand collapse overshadowing the price war earlier in the month between Saudi Arabia and Russia, Oxford Economics has cut its world oil price forecast to 33.76 per barrel for 2020 from 62.37 per barrel last month. Various government policies around the world, significant and swift measures should be applied to support the aviation sector in the turbulent months ahead. Country governments across the globe have been urged to implement policies that would directly support the sector across the following three areas, namely, protection of livelihoods of workers. Financial help must be granted to protect the incomes of the millions of workers in severe difficulty. Fiscal support. Government should extend vital unlimited interest-free loans to global travel and tourism companies, as well as the millions of small and medium-sized businesses, as a stimulus to prevent them from collapse. Government's dues and financial demands on the aviation sector needs to be waived for immediate effect at least the next 12 months. Injecting liquidity and cash. Cash flow assistance to support players big and small of the aviation sector is critical, as well as to offer targeted support to severely affected industry within the sector. Special awareness program. The government around the world have made provision to create awareness of COVID-19 and the importance of it, abiding by the rules of social distance and high levels of hygiene. All around the world, including Nigeria, measures put in place by Nigerian government through the CBN, a of moratorium for all CBN the applicable interest rate on all CBN intervention facilities. This was dropped from 9% to 5% per annum, with effective from 1st of March 2020. Creation of a 50 billion naira targeted credit facility to support small and medium enterprise in this era of COVID-19 through the National Microfinance Bank. The healthcare industry. This given the serious pressure on the healthcare industry by the COVID-19 outbreak. Billion facility hospital, healthcare practitioners intending to expand, open their drug manufacturing plants in Nigeria, or expand and build their health facility to first maybe regulatory forbearance, deposit money ban, have been given leave to extend the tenors of credit granted to businesses and households affected by the coronavirus outbreak in this regard. Strengthening of the CBN loan deposit ratio in order to sustain the successful implementation of the existing LDR policy in the light of negative consequences of the COVID-19. Further support for the industry funding level by providing liquidity backup at the lender of last resort in order to maintain the capacity of demand DMB to continue to extend low interest and long tenor credit to households. All this went on and on from countries to countries. Italy had a package, Hong Kong came up with a package, Germany shield companies from going under. The government pledged unlimited cash to German businesses and is suspending legal obligation for firms facing acute liquidity problems to file for bankruptcy until September. UK equally is not left out. Likewise, Spain. The Spanish government announced a financing line of 400 million euro with guarantee from the IOC, Official Credit Institute of Spain, for self-employed tourism companies domiciled in Spain in need of liquidity with a limit of 500,000 euro. The fund operates as a 4-year loan with a fixed interest rate with a maximum of 1.5%, in which the ICO will guarantee credit institutions with a 50% of the risk of their clients. So all these go on and on. So we're going to be looking at discussing on certain pillars. One, COVID-19, as it affects the labor market in terms of employment, supporting enterprises, jobs, and income, and protecting workers the workers in the workplace in the aviation industry. COVID-19 has affected both the demands and the supply side of the labor market and has huge implications for full employment and decent work, pushing many families into poverty and increasing existing inequalities. Two, as it pertains to relying on social dialogue for solutions, the lesson from previous global crises has shown that government alone cannot address the challenges stemming from strong shocks. Three, as it affects palliative measures to be implemented by government, according to industries affected, the COVID-19 has forced governments of the world to result in coming up with palliative measures to cushion the adverse effect of global pandemic. Finally, as it affects the psychological trauma on citizens, the elevated rates of stress and anxiety, as well as the complete reset of people's unusual activities, routines, and livelihood, resulting in the emergence of what we call the new normal. The new normal is one area that I will want the panelists. There's no doubt that we've gotten to a new world. We've all gone back to a reset, and we're starting from the word go, which is from point zero. That is the point which we're all going to move forward. So our discussion is going to say a whole lot in this regard. The mental health and well-being of the frontline worker also is a major concern. Thank you very much for that. As I've made the topic open to our panelists, who are going to share their views based on the impact of COVID-19 on the aviation sector and the proposed way forward for us to be able to find a lasting solution. It is no doubt that the government has opened up part of the country for us to do business, and it is no doubt that some are still locked down. We're going to be looking at all this area, how it affects us. In a short period, I will allow each of the panelists to speak on their view of the impact of the COVID-19 as the topic is, and I will start with Captain Musa Nuhu, who is the DG of NCAA, the regulatory body that is in charge of Captain Musa Nuhu.
A very good morning, everybody, and good morning, Bankole. Thank you for the nice introduction. After your introduction, I don't know if we have much to say. As you said, the regulator is of serious concern to us, the impact of COVID-19 on the aviation industry and the global economy. As you have mentioned, virtually all the airlines in the world have been grounded. Hundreds of thousands of workers have been laid off by the major airlines, not even Africa, by the big major airlines in the world. Some have declared bankruptcy, some are likely to declare bankruptcy going forward, and a lot of airlines are just purely not going to survive it. Coming back specifically to Nigeria, according to IATA, the airline industry, just the airline industry is going to lose $900 million. That's almost $1 billion. And 125,000 jobs on the line. Not just the airline, if we add the multiply effects on the other parts of the industry, the loss is going to be several times that amount. And for the regulator, that's a very major concern for us, because if the airlines don't make money, it becomes a safety matter for us. It's a safety issue, so it puts a lot of burden on us. In addition to the safety matter, one of the functions of the Civil Aviation Authority, as enunciated in the 2006 Civil Aviation Act, is economic regulation. It's our responsibility to help the airlines grow. Now, this impact of COVID-19 has really set us back seriously. And we've released quite a few number of circulars trying to guide the airlines. I think a total of about 22 as of my last count, to really help the airlines to guide them through this COVID-19. And the latest we had was on the restart plan. 2 days ago, we had a Zoom meeting with the AOC operators in Nigeria. We had for over 3 hours. We're trying to discuss with them, explain to them on what they need to do to open the industry in Nigeria in an orderly, safe and secure manner. The airlines have been grounded. Some of them have been grounded for several weeks. There are many issues to be dealt with. Some are technical, some are non-technical, such as the public health corridor concept. This whole thing problem became because of COVID. So we really have to deal with the issue of the public health corridor concept, because if we don't do that, then we're going to run into bigger problems. Staff, crew, the passengers will be endangered. So it's quite a significant responsibility on our head. What we are trying to do is work together with the industry and see how we can both work together to get out of this. And the point I'm also trying to make here, the financial impact is not only on the airlines. For example, the Civil Aviation Authority, about 80% of our revenue stream is from the 5% ticket and cargo sales charge. As I'm talking to you, over the last couple of months, our revenue, between January and now, our revenue stream has shrunk by at least 90%. So we also significantly, with the Civil Aviation Authority, FAN, and NAMA to a large extent. And the Honorable Minister had us meet for about 10 days to come up with palliatives for the industry, how we can assist the industry in many different ways. Some might be financial assistance, some might be some waivers, exemptions, and also the aviation agencies, NCA, FAN, NAMA, and all the gamut. So it's a huge problem, and we can really only get out of this working together. We have no choice but to pull our hands and work together, both the regulators, the service providers, and industry. If we don't do that, then it's going to be total disaster for all of us. And going forward, the Nigerian airlines, I fear for a lot of the airlines in Nigeria, quite a few of them, not only the airlines, other AOC holders might not really survive, and a lot of jobs will be lost down the way, and that has the potential of creating social crisis, upheaval in one way or another. So I'm glad to be here, and if anybody has any questions.
Thank you very much, Captain Musa Nuhu, the DG of NCA, for sharing your perspective with us. I'm sure that we have quite a lot of attendees waiting to ask questions as it pertains to the regulatory aspect of the aviation industry. I will move on to speak with the next panelist in the person of Lola Adefope, to give us a perspective on the impact of the COVID-19 on the aviation sector. Lola, please, over to you.
Good morning, all protocol observed, and thank you very much for including me on this platform. We have had an overview of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on not only the aviation industry in Nigeria, but also globally. And from the perspective of Business Travel Management Limited, we also look at this impact on our individual travelers. The aviation industry has been impacted quite significantly. And we've already heard several of these numbers. Mr. Musa Nuhu told us about the $900 million impact in Nigeria, 125,000 jobs being affected, with a knock-on domino effect of 7 times more of that. The aviation industry said this is the new normal, and it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same as we have expected the past decade, whereby people do short trips.
Lola, hold on a second. Lola, hold on a second. IoD office, can you please mute your mic? It's disturbing. Lola, you may continue. Lola, please continue.
Thank you, and thank you very much for that. As I was saying, thank you. As I was saying, the way in which we travel is going to be severely impacted. It's going to change. It's not just the new normal for corporate business where people are used to doing meetings, this way we're doing it right now, virtual and digital meetings. It has pushed the business environment into accepting, whether you're in a developed nation or in an emerging economy, but it's pushed the business environment into accepting and becoming comfortable and familiar with online meetings and with digital interactions. This obviously is going to have a knock-on effect on the travel and aviation space, whereby we're going to see a lower volume of traveler confidence and a lower volume of travel coming from both the leisure and from the corporate side of the travel industry. One of the key things that we're going to have to work together on at this point in time is to rebuild travel confidence and traveler confidence. And rebuilding that traveler confidence comes from both the corporate sector, the leisure sector, and the aviation sector working hand in hand. For Business Travel Management Limited, our focus has always been predominantly on corporate travel space, working with travel companies, working with corporate companies as their travel consultants to ensure that their passengers are moving around the world in the safest and most efficient ways possible. The questions that we're already receiving from a lot of our corporates is how is this COVID-19 going to impact their business development? How is it going to impact the way in which they travel around the world? How is it going to impact their accommodation? A lot of the clients that we have at this point in time have already negotiated with their suppliers, negotiated with airlines and hotels based on volume, based on the number of passengers that they expect to actually check in onto the airlines and check into hotels. Those negotiations are having to be revised, and we're also having to work with a lot of the suppliers to ensure that the corporates and the travelers are not put at risk and are not financially impacted too much based on the loss of revenue and based on the decrease in volumes. One of the key things that we're also looking at as well with our clients is their travel policy. How are the rules, restrictions, and guidelines that they have put in place previously to allow their travelers to move around the world in a safe manner? How do those now need to change? Do additional restrictions now need to be put in place? Do additional security measures now need to be put in place? A lot of clients previously worked with companies such as ISOS or Prism to track the movement of their passengers as they traveled around the world. Are we now going to be wearing wearable trackers, and how is this now going to affect the world? We've also been looking at and researching safe and efficient manners of traveling. We've looked at the research that a lot of airlines are doing, as well as a lot of the governing bodies for the aviation sector are putting in place regarding passenger flow around airports. How do we ensure that we have a hygienic and safe flow of passengers through the airport? How is this going to affect the travelers when the airspace opens up again and when airlines start releasing the inventory? We're already aware that for Nigerians, we have Qatar Airways is already looking at go live dates, I believe, and I know that Mr. Church is going to discuss that a little bit more. We've received notifications from Emirates Airlines, BA, and Lufthansa, who are already planning Lufthansa Abuja and Port Harcourt and Lagos routes from June. Is there going to be the traveler confidence to fill those seats, or are people still going to be worried about sitting in an enclosed space and traveling for a period of time? We're not going to see the volume and the rate of city hops, intercity hops, as we did previously, whereby somebody would, a business traveler would wake up in London and have a meeting in Germany and have lunch in Paris and be home for dinner at the end of the day. People are going to be a lot more circumspect about where they travel to, whether travel is necessary, and how long they travel for. We're already receiving notices from different countries who are considering opening up their borders again as to how they're going to allow passengers into their countries and how they're going to track those travelers. We're seeing a lot of embassies asking for COVID certificates before passengers travel. So is that something that we then want to guide our passengers about? And to discuss that.
Right. Thank you very much, Lola. You know, I was trying to, in my head, I was cracking my brain that, okay, if this was a physical thing, I would have been scribbling something on the piece of paper to pass to you and say, Lola, time up. But it's a bit difficult. How do I say, hello, time up? But I mean, we want to try as much as possible to manage the time that we have available today, because I know quite a lot of people are throwing up questions, and we will have to attend to those questions so that people can get your perspective on those questions that bothers them. So on, I'll call on the next panelist, is none other than Mr. Folusho Phillips, to give us his own perspective. As we're all aware, is the chairman of Philip Consulting and is equally a board member of Nigeria Institute of Human Virology. I'm sure he will be able to say one or two things about this pandemic to us and how we can probably get more aware of what we found ourselves into and how we're going to get out of it to a very large extent. Mr. Folusho Phillips, over to you, sir.
Okay. Yes, good morning, everybody, and thank you once again for inviting me to join in what is an extremely important issue that concerns moving people around the world and even within our own region here. A lot has been said by the others, and let's not try to repeat ourselves so much. You mentioned about me being a member of the Institute of Human Virology. I can assure you that I don't know enough to be able to talk authoritatively about health issues. What we do know that the virus is here, and what I always say is that we say post-COVID-19, and I keep saying to myself, when will it be post-COVID-19? When will it really end? Because it seems that the kind of message we're getting is that it's, from the point of view of getting a vaccine, it's going to take us another year or so. And it is that inability of people to communicate physically that's really causing the problems that we face today. Let me just start off by saying that, stating the obvious, okay? People aren't flying. That's the bottom line. And because people aren't flying, I even wonder that if today the ban on flying was lifted, how many people would really jump on a plane and travel anywhere? And as a result of that, the reality is that airlines have to see if they can survive or not. And how are you going to survive when the very business that you're in has come to an end, a temporary end, so to speak? And these are the realities and the headaches that the CEOs and people that are managing airlines, these are the tough decisions and the realities they face that they must deal with. Even before we start talking about the future, how do I survive today to even think about what will happen in a year or so's time? So typically you find that CEOs are saying, I have here people, plant, and equipment. I've got all these equipment sitting on the ground, these aircraft that have got to be maintained. Even though they're not flying, don't forget, you've still got to maintain these aircrafts from a safety point of view. And there's all these lubrications and hydraulics and tires and all the little bits and pieces that I know about that you've got to maintain. So even sitting there is a cost. Forget about the accounting implication of you depreciating an asset that you're not using. The fact is physically you've got to maintain it. And therefore you've got to employ people who will do that, and that's a cost. Fair enough, you've also got the people that you can sort of do without, so to speak. Those that actually fly, your pilots, and you can see globally, pilots are being let go in their hundreds of thousands around the world. Locally here, yes, if you can't afford it, you might have to ask pilots to, to step aside for a little bit. And then it goes down the hierarchy like that. Your cabin crew, your check-in, people who do the check-in, people who deal with the airport facilitation of passenger travel. You begin to go down the line, and you've got to take some decisions. Am I going to get rid of them permanently? Am I going to let them to go on leave? Am I going to let them to go on unpaid leave? The ones that are extremely important to me, for how long can I continue to sustain some level of engagement and employment? Am I going to have to reduce the salaries from 50% to 30% to 70%, whatever it is? These decisions have got to be taken, and they're really tough ones. A lot of people, even in the industry, so to speak, even the likes of a Bankole, you are a travel agent of sorts, and there's zero income. But you got to pay your rent, and these are some fixed costs that you got to deal with. Now, so these are very, very tough decisions that we got to talk about, because whilst we can talk in generality about the wonderful, well, not the wonderful, the challenging things we face us, the point is, what do I do come Monday morning? And yes, you've got to sit down and take these hard decisions. Hard decisions have got to be taken. And the bottom line is survival, while still trying to have some kind of consideration for your employees, knowing that it is something that was not brought upon us by our actions, but it's just the work of nature for now. So we put that aside and say, for airlines, there's some major decisions you've got to take. They're going to be tough decisions. And the bottom line is, to what extent can I survive, if at all? And if I can't, and I know that I've got to close my doors, hard as it might be, that might be what we're going to have to do. And if things are going to have to get better in the future, then yes, we will do it. But let's not, potty around the issue. It's for real. The second thing that is so important is, how do we get people to decide that they want to fly? I would hesitate to fly today because like most people, we are very worried and afraid of this virus. And until we can see conditions that make us comfortable about the ability to go out there, go through all the airport protocols, checking in and getting on board and going through security, sitting on a flight and looking at the guy next to me and wondering if he's got the virus or not. I've got my face mask on. Do I take any airport airline catering? All these things bother us, and therefore we panic. And at the moment, the more intelligent of us and more sensitive of us are sensitive to those things. There are people that are lower down the system that say that don't seem to care because, you know, survival is what is driving their need. So the second thing about that is, look, will I fly if you're given the opportunity to fly? And I think Lola touched on it as well. Even I, as an airline, if I am going to fly, how am I going to cater for the people that are coming on board so that they're going to feel comfortable? And the whole range of things are going to begin to change in terms of what we do. The bottom line also is that we have to bear in mind, we have to start learning new skills, new technologies. People are reconfiguring planes. People are, you know, nowadays you don't get a fancy meal. If you're going to go on board, I get a sealed package that ensures that I am safe. The bottom line is, for now, and let's not forget it, will people fly? And if they say, and it seems as if the primary thing we've got to do is to give people the comfort of knowing that, look, you can fly safely, okay? And safely is not just about the plane taking off and landing, it's about me not catching a virus that everybody's panicking about. And that's a reality. So I'm going to stop there for now so that we all get a chance to deal with these things. But the first thing is, how does the airline survive? And there are a lot of things that you can do. Secondly, how we can get people to start flying again, because once we do that, we're back in business. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Felicia Phillips, coming from your perspective. We will try and move on as quickly as we can, considering the fact that time is really running out. It's amazing how time flies. The next person I'm going to be calling to speak to us from his perspective is no one but Dr. Gabriel Olowo. This is a man aviation industry, from being an airliner to a travel agent to a global distribution solution provider, to all in all. He's going to be giving us his perspective, all in general, how it affects, how COVID-19 has impacted the aviation sector. So on to you, Dr. Gabriel Olowo.
Good morning?
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, IoD, and my dear brother, Bankole, for inviting us. A lot has been said already. And so without repeating ourselves, I want to dwell a little bit on data as it affects Nigeria and the way forward. If you look at the global confirmed data, globally, mortality rate globally, as at yesterday, globally 4.2 million and 292,000 deaths. That confirms mortality rate of 15% globally. US has the biggest data, 1.3 million confirmed cases, 82,000 deaths, 17% mortality rate. Coming down to Nigeria, home is home. As of last night, the data is 4791 tested, 164 deaths. Mortality rate about 29–30%. My number one question is, I give a lot of kudos to our people in the medical, NCDC and the team. The efforts are appreciated. But my worry is, how come the mortality rate in Nigeria is this high? If the global average is 15%, what are we not doing right? Why is our own mortality rate 30%? The people confirmed what are we doing to them, that the mortality rate is this high, because this is very threatening for Nigeria. World average is 15. The US, where you have the largest number of deaths, it's 17%. Nigeria, with such a small number of tested, has 30% mortality rate. That's the number one question for our care in here, while we're looking at the future. What are we doing presently? That's number one worry. My number two worry is we can say, all right, we just have 4,791 dying out of 1,200,000,000 population. That means about in every 42,000 Nigerian, we are likely going to have one. Should we worry? Of course, yes. Of course, yes. But if we should worry that one out of every 50,000 is going to die, that's large. And we said, let us continue to shut down. What are the impacts of shutting down? Continued shut down. What are the complications? We already heard from all the speakers, the economic, terrible, negative multiplier effect on the economy. And I must remind our world that hunger kills even more than disease in Africa. Our world has never cared about malaria for us, and we've been living here with malaria. And the symptoms of COVID-19 is almost 90% malaria. If it is 90% malaria, should continued lockdown be an answer? If it is not an answer, how can we balance what we are doing in Nigeria? I think we need to balance it. I do know that since the lockdown started, a lot of people are dying of stroke, especially the seniors who couldn't exercise. Exercise. People are dying from sedentary life. You are in your house eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and there is no exercise. You might say, okay, you can walk around your house, you can walk around your environment. That is not it. People are eating. Some people that have dropped, they already dropped some of their drugs, are back on the drugs because of sitting back at home. Therefore, we need to be very reasonable in taking decisions about continued lockdown. The multiplier effect on the economy, the health challenges outside of COVID-19. We must look at that. Now, coming back to our own sector, let me narrow down to our sector. From data, in the month of March alone, the bookings that we could capture from our own record showed that, let me just get this data quickly, showed that in the month of March, year on year, compare March and March 2019 to March 2020. Nigeria bookings was about 353,000 bookings compared to 63,000 bookings March 2020. That's a collapse of 82% Nigerian booking business, as it affects the travel agencies' direct booking through BSP. That's 82% loss. If we translate that into dollars and naira, that in fact impacts almost every travel sector. By the time it gets into April, the business collapsed further by another 17%. Beg your pardon, by 112%. So when we measure quarter one is an average of 17% drop. That's quarter one. How should we continue with these negative businesses, because bookings that were made are being canceled, particularly passenger bookings? These are my thoughts. Number one, the lessons for our airlines. We may have to revisit our business model that we were doing in the 70s and the 80s. The airline business in the 70s and the 80s, before we got to era of specialization, we were diversifying. I remember in those years, airlines own hotels, airlines have cargo businesses, airlines have farms, whereby their farm will produce all the products needed for consumption. So where one arm of the business is not surviving, I do know during COVID, agriculture and medicine is surviving. The late Nigeria Airways, I remember they have water department, they have food department, they have handling department. So when passenger traffic suffered any problem, maybe the food is selling, maybe the water is selling, maybe the agric is selling. This is COVID-19, which is a reality now, is taking us back to the era of is it backward and forward linkages? These are what we're doing presently, right? Where we're just specializing, you outsource that, just concentrate on passenger business, let's outsource, and let's just focus on specialization. The world is a cycle. We may be getting back to that cycle again, so that if one arm of our business suffers a step back, another arm might be thriving. Passenger traffic is suffering right now, but cargo is traveling, is thriving. So we may have to look seriously at cargo. Number two, I know I'm already seeing your signs, Banki. That time is not on our side. Number two is a challenge of technology. The challenge of technology. From our own side, social distancing, which is so difficult. Face mask is so difficult to the passenger. We, as a technology company, we are cracking our head because prior to this, IATA concentrated on simplifying the business. We were thinking of making life easy rather than remove your belt, remove your pant, become naked at the airport. How can we travel in a more simple way? Now, COVID is adding to it. The only way travel will be made simple and simpler is technology. And we're cracking brain on how can we handle social distancing? How can we do a lot of self-checking? You may not have to go to check-in counter to do a lot of things. You do a lot of checks yourself with machines. You check in your baggage with machines. That was already on even before COVID. And we're researching into further efforts that will be done that will limit personal contact. Because take it or leave it, COVID-19 is going to be here. Personal contact is going to be very difficult for a very long time. And until we find a means of handling possible reduction in personal contact, passengers may not want to travel. There will be apprehension about traveling. I don't know how we want to put space inside the aeroplane, social distance inside the aeroplane. I don't know how economic that will be. If I put 30 passengers inside an aeroplane that can take 120, how am I going to break even? So it's going to be really tough. So I think for now, technology will be it while we're working with our people, and we'll see what we could roll out to help the traveling public. Let me just pause there for now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olowo, for that. We will try as much as possible to manage our time so that I want to get all the speakers to speak and attend to as many questions as possible. On the chat box, there are quite a lot of arguments going on there concerning the figures you have given, that some are saying that it's not 30% as it were, that it's 3% and 1.5% respectively, the mortality rate of COVID-19 death in the world and Nigeria at large. So quickly, I will move on to Captain Ado Sanusi, an aviator that has been in the industry for many years, to give us from his own perspective, paying a lot of attention to what the survival of the aviation industry, the domestic carriers will be in this COVID-19 and post-COVID-19. Are we all still going to be flying Lagos to Abuja in the manner which we're flying? Are there going to be meal on board? Are we going to get ourselves crowded up in those buses that convey us from the terminal to the aircraft? You know, I want you to come from all those perspectives so that it reduces the number of questions. You would have answered some of the questions that are popping up on the chat box. Thank you very much, Captain Ado Sanusi. Over to you.
Yeah, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much, Bankole. And thank you very much, IoD, for finding it for me to participate in this very important discussion. I would like to look at it because everybody, can you hear me? Okay, I would like to look at it in a little different way because most of the panelists spoke very well about aviation. The Philip consultant, Mr. Folojo, has dissected the whole thing.
Okay.
And of course, Lola has done a very good job too. Everybody has actually talked really much about this industry. So what I will do a little bit different is to look at it as what was the genesis? Were there lessons learned from what happened before? And how do we go forward from there? And what will be the effect? And how confident are we going forward? Basically, the virus was brought by aviation, of course, aircraft to Nigeria on the 27th. And we shouldn't forget, in 2014, we had a pandemic. Well, in West Africa, we had Ebola, which was also brought in by an aircraft from the West African coast to Nigeria, and which actually caused the death of, unfortunately, some Nigerians. So, but we did not develop at that time a pandemic response to aviation, actually, where we should isolate immediately. Because I believe if we had done that, we would have limited the transmission greatly by isolation of the passengers coming in. So there was no plan. And I think that's the lesson that we should talk about coming forward with it. Of course, everybody has talked about the effect. The effect is colossal. Nobody can say this is what will happen. Nobody, because we have not done this. The only magnitude, the only thing that I can relate to is the World War. Maybe after World War II, the world came together to fashion aviation. And I believe after COVID, the world should come together and fashion what we're going to have post-COVID. And I think ICAO is doing that, which is very good, to ensure that we build the confidence back into the system. The issue of flying and the issue, of course, of airlines surviving and all that, it is very, very important to understand that the airlines rely basically 90% on the ticket sales. And since we closed down, there was no single ticket sales, at least for the local airlines. So that means there was no revenue. So if it's just like a patient that is starved of oxygen. So it's just a matter of time. But we believe the government will understand, and we believe that aviation is a key ingredient in the economic recovery post-COVID. So if you remove the economic stimulus package from aviation, then that means you're removing a big ingredient in the recovery. And of course, you will recover, but the product will be different because it's like you're cooking a soup and you have removed the major ingredient. Of course, at the end of the day, you're not going to get that. Now, I'm very confident that the travel industry will come.
Captain, are you still there? Captain Sanusi, are you still there? I think we've lost him. His network is hanging, and we'll just wait for him to join us. We've lost him, and we'll wait for him to join us. While he's coming back on board, I think it's an opportunity for us to take on the country manager of Qatar Airways, in the person of Kennedy Chicha. Now, Kennedy, I want you to the fact that we have of foreign carriers in Nigeria and the role they play, considering the fact that in the first place, the COVID-19 is an imported virus into Nigeria. How we will have to mitigate this, how we will not have to suffer the impact severely on the majority of businesses around Nigeria. We want you to come from your perspective and how the international carriers are surviving it, because we've had arrays of figures showing how badly they've been affected by this COVID-19. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Bankole. Thank you, IoD, for this invite. Mine would be very brief. Most of the panelists have really dwelt on many aspects. As an international airline, the impact is real, it's quite heavy. You know, we opt happening, especially in terms of costs. Most airlines have really grounded their equipment. You know, they have laid off their staff. You know, many other measures have been taken. Yes, the cases of COVID was brought about through flying, through the airports.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, I lost
however,
connection.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, I'm working. Yes.
However, as an airline, we always say that airline is an enabler, is what connects people to businesses, it's what connects people to investments and what have you. So first, I must put it very clear that based on research and studies, the risk of transmission on board is really low, quite low. You know, IATA has done a research and it has published already. The risk of transmission on board is very low, basically because of the airflows on board. You know, it's not stuck air. There's a lot of refreshed air because it's not natural air, but designed in such a way that the refreshment is quite rapid. The other bit I must dwell on is that the business will rebound, travel will rebound. The only thing is the nature of travel will change significantly. Where, if you are a trader, instead of going to China, you probably would be doing, online transactions instead of traveling yourself. Corporates would still continue. We see a bit of leisure traffic being hit a bit, but over time, when the confidence is built, leisure will return back to its normalcy. What would be required now going forward? Number one, of course, is depending on how the governments and other agencies, government agencies respond to post-COVID. For example, in terms of marketing the country, indicating that the country is safe, enlightening the public in terms of the measures being taken, how proper, the process of checking in and taking on for flight is sanitized. What are the measures, for example, in our airports here would be taken so that to ensure that, passengers when they're traveling, they are secure. The other thing that I would want to bring it out here, which have not been dwelt on, is the characteristics and probably the kind of population that is traveling today. You know, it varies from country to country. When you look at some, those, very advanced countries, most of people who travel as such are actually the retirees, the senior citizens. You know, when you look at, young countries, growing countries, is actually the dot-coms generation. So of course, the information we have is that the virus is more aggressive on the senior citizens. So it will be depend on country to country. Where countries we have younger group of travelers, the impact will not be so much, and therefore confidence of returning to travel will come sooner. Yeah, where it's a situation where it's a senior citizens going on leisure, you will see a lot of resistance, and a lot of time will be taken to come back to travel. All in all, we forecast that the business will come back. Travel will come back. However, it only depends on the preparedness of the government's agencies concerned, how well to be prepared, and of course, and a coordination. In terms of costs, in terms of fares, prices, I saw someone inquiring in the chat how will be the pricing looking like. The pricing mainly will be dependent on two aspects. It would be first on demand, and two on the costs. If, for example, governments and entities insist that social distancing must be kept even on board, then obviously a number of seats would be removed, and hence the cost would go up. If, for example, the demand picks in and the requirement for social distance is not emphasized on board, then it means that the price would even go down because of fuel costs have gone down. Because of overcapacity in the markets, and many airlines would want to come back as soon as possible. Obviously, they will do a lot of campaigns in terms of pricing. So obviously, you will see a lot of low fares being thrown out here in the market. So it's a catch-22, so to speak, at this point in time. I think that's all I can say for now. Thank you, Bankole.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kennedy, for your contribution. I'm sure there are lots of questions hanging around a whole lot of things that we have spoken about. It covers the workforce in the aviation sector. The aviation sector, what happens to the workforce? Are they going to slash their salaries? Are they going to lay them off? What is going to happen? I want us to talk on the welfare of the workforce in the aviation industry. That's number one. A lot of justice has not been done to the safety that reposes confidence in the travelers again. The travelers are wary of flying. So if we cannot talk about that to give them some level of confidence that will make them feel, oh, I have to come back, just like Mr. Folusha Philip said when he was giving his remark. Why will I want to fly? The fear of COVID-19 will probably want to make me sit back than to get on the plane, because the chances of me contacting COVID-19 by flying, it seems higher, but if I can keep myself back home, then I'll be much safer. So people need, how are we going to get people back into that mood of wanting to fly? And I equally said one other thing. There's a new normal. The new normal needs to be addressed. What is the new normal going to be? And that is going to be the way forward. Your perspective of what the new normal will be is what we're going to take next before we start to take all the questions, because I've kind of wrapped up some of the questions that some of the attendees are asking, and I've wrapped them up to put it. But let me mention at this point that the DG of FDA to leave us because he got a call to join. He's a member of the presidential task force on this COVID-19 thing, so he had to quickly go and attend to their meeting. So he had to leave us. Captain Ado Sanusi is back with us. We lost him while the network went really bad. I figured the network got hooked by COVID-19, but it happens to be one of the ones that survived it. So, Captain Ado Sanusi, can you please quickly round up what you discussed, then we can go into answering of the questions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sorry, I got mixed up there with the change of power. But as I was saying, that I'm very confident that we will come back, because if you look at history, if you look at 9/11, there was a lot of apprehension. People going back to fly? What will happen after 9/11? Flights will be empty because people will be scared that flights will be falling off the sky. But after some time, after the measures were put in place, people got the confidence to start flying. I believe when we all come together globally to address the issue of the fears of spreading COVID-19 inside the aircraft, we will give the confidence to the flying public. I believe the ICAO is doing a lot, and what Nigerian Civil Aviation is doing is also good. But I can tell you categorically now that aviation is the safest way to travel, even with COVID-19. It is you are safer in an airplane than to go into a banquet hall, because the air in the airplane, as somebody has said, is always refreshed. And there are so many gates that we will put before you enter the airplane. There will be temperature, there will be mask, and there are so many things. There will be we will sanitize the airplane almost every time the passengers are coming in. There will be very little interaction between cabin crew and the passengers. And the crew will always be very wary about the passengers that they bring in. So I'm very confident the inhuman nature of traveling will always prevail. And I believe, yes, we are now scared, but we'll overcome it in a few days. But the effect will go a long way. It will go for over 2-3 years, maybe 4 years. And we're going to lose a lot of very fine hands in the aviation industry, because the effect will make people change their trade. And that is also what we're going to be faced with post-COVID-19 in the next 24 to 36 months. But I'm very confident flying from Lagos to Abuja will resume. And I'm very confident that we will be filling up the seat. Physical distance in a single aisle airplane is not possible. We just need to make the passengers feel confident, just like we did after 9/11, because of things that we're going to do and we're going to put in place so that they can feel comfortable. That's what we're going to do. But it is extremely important to let the passengers know that this is the safest way to travel, especially in Nigeria, where the road networks, the railways are not the best. So the best way to travel is aviation. The safest way is aviation also. And I'm confident we're coming back, and we're coming back strong.
Thank you very much, Captain Ado Sanusi, for that insight. I think we'll throw the floor open at this particular point in time so that we can take on some of the questions that has been asked. But I can see the DG of NTDC in the person of Folorun Shokoka wanting to ask a question. Do we have him there to speak? Mr. Folorun Shokoka, can you go ahead and speak? Mr. Folorun Shokoka, if you're there, can you go ahead and speak?
Yes, can you all hear me? Good morning, everybody. My name is Folorun Shokoka. I have listened for about 30 minutes to all that has been said, and it is truly a special time in our lives that we will see an industry that has been one of the most profitable globally go through this. I think the airline industry has been the hardest of any industry hit. I just got a list of airlines globally this morning that have either filed for bankruptcy or fired staff. etc. And I really just don't know how recovery for those airlines are going to be possible, because the airlines have also been operating on very slim operating profits up till now. I put a statement up earlier on, and I asked the question, we are like doctors at war. Are we going to treat the people who we look at and know that it is not possible for them to recover? Or are we going to invest in the birth of new things that will create both jobs and incomes that Nigeria needs? There is an unprecedented global capacity right now in the airline business in terms of pilots that have no work, aircrafts that are sitting down. What should we be investing in for the survival of the aviation industry in Nigeria? Is it the protection of the old or the birth of new? I look at airports, and I think all of us have been through many airports, and it is scary what we must do in at least our 3 new international airports. I look at the check-in procedure, the security clearance procedures, the departure gate procedures, the boarding lines, the disembarking from aircraft, the immigration queues, the customs, the baggage lines, even waiting for taxis. All those have to become in some sort of way contactless. You know, it's not, what you're selling now is safety, it's hygiene. You know, you may have to get a Moody certificate or SGS certificate of compliance to run an airport. That is the level we are going to go to have the confidence. I'm speaking from a tourism perspective. Tourism was very instrumental in the recovery after 9/11, in the recovery after the world economic recession, in the recovery after SARS, and I think it'll be important in this as well. However, certain things need, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. Certain things need to be done, and done very quickly. We need to look at our corporate governance and welfare issues within the industry now. We need to look at the human capital that serves that industry and the training they have now. We need to look at the infrastructure that specifically supports that industry. Now, these things are there. I'm not saying you have to go and buy new, but you need to rejig them and do them radically and quickly now. In terms of financing, free money is never good money. I think also that any borrowing or any lending over double digits is not going to help anybody. Bankole has been winding his fingers, which means I should round up. Yeah, but I would like to say that I am glad to see that you break from yes, I am glad that you have taken a break from collecting cash. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Folorunsho Koka, the DG of NTDC, for your contribution. And I will let Kennedy come from the perspective which Koka has spoken, talking about the impact. What do you think is going to happen to this value chain in the aviation sector, from the taxi driver that picks up from the airport to the bag handling? What is going to happen? Is it truly possible to make it contactless? How is that going to work? Just give us a brief talk on that.
I think, just thank you very much, Bankole. I think based on the question, quite a lot of significant changes will have to happen. Most of the things will have to be done pre-arranged. It will not be a question of, you go to the airport anytime you wish to. You say, I'll fly at 2, and you go in the morning and you think that they will receive you. A lot of, it will be like, a really paradigm shift. It's got to be precise. Your time is your time. If your time is gone, you don't go to the airport. So a lot of things have to change. We have to, rethink on how even we are received at the airport. And even when we're queuing, you'll have your time for queuing. You not just wake up and say, I'm going to the queue. A lot of things will have to change. And this, of course, will involve a number of industry players, including civil aviation. Besides that, of course, technology will be the center of all. Basically, a lot of investments will go into technology. Yes, we have redundancy going on in terms of pilots and what have you. There would be a little bit of adjustments here and there, but majority of it will actually go back to employment in the long term. However, the way of doing business will change. Definitely will change. Even going at the airport, you'll have a private taxi, but that taxi would, you'll have to pre-arrange. It will not be a question of going and standing outside and saying, where is the taxi? It will be, everything would be seamless, so that to avoid, a lot of touch points, to reduce touch points. I like the point where Gabriel mentioned about e-check-in. Most airlines have already implemented e-check-in. However, it was a bit slow in terms of uptake. But now this is the time. This is the time where you will see a lot of passengers themselves inquiring about e-check-in. You don't have to go to a counter to weigh your bags. You should weigh your bags at home. When you enter to the airport, you just drop it and you go to the immigration. Some airports, in some countries, they have already implemented e-gates. You don't need to go and interact with the immigration officer. You just put your fingertips and you move. So this is what now needs to be implemented. We need to move towards that direction.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, for that. Sorry, I had to cut you short because I'm trying to manage the time. Even though you were thinking in that directive, I always want you to understand, speak from the perspective of Africa. Africa can never be compared with the Western world. The technology speed that we have in Africa, I can tell you that as of today, there are still some countries that do not even have e-tickets in Africa. So if there's no e-ticket, then why are you talking about contactless? But before we come back to you, I would like to have Mr. Folusha Phillips say something to us in this regard.
Yes, thank you very much. And the points that were raised by Florence Okoka and by Kennedy just now is getting down to what I call, yes, the nitty-gritty and the details. But if I want us to go, slightly higher, cruise at 45,000 feet, as you guys say, we need to put in a kind of a structure that allows us to implement all these things. And I think the word I've used is to see how we can begin to digitize our airports. It's not impossible. You find that in Africa, talking about Africa, we've had the opportunity to always leapfrog based on the background, on the back of technology. And we know the story about the telephone systems and all those things, which all of a sudden has put Africa in the forefront of digital applications. And there's a lot that we can still do. And we don't want to go into the arguments about 5G, but 5G would help. But what I want to say is that it's almost like dealing with the elephant in the room. Our airports, when could we begin to think seriously about privatizing our airports? Trying to think about regional hubs, even within the country, a Southwest hub, a Northeast hub, South-South hub, whatever. I'm trying to follow the kind of model that operates in the United States, whereby you find that the likes of Delta revolves around Atlanta, and certainly even here in Nigeria, I see creeping up very slowly, Ibom Air taking ownership of Ibom Airport. And as a result of that holistic approach to managing aviation, flying, the experience and everything is all put together into one very comprehensive value chain of activities. So what I'm saying is that, look, let us see how we can revisit the concept of privatizing our airports, owning our airports. Believe me, the private sector can always come up with the money if they see that it's going to work. And if it's going to be a digitized airport, shifting our paradigms totally to the new world that Kennedy and Florence Okoka are talking about, then maybe it is the kind of thing we want to do and say, yes, that is a real new post-COVID-19. Now, I won't say more than that, but the whole idea is, can we look at privatizing our airports, putting private capital behind it, getting government to just perform its regulatory role and get out of it. We don't want government in these things because the record shows that we don't get it right with government, and I'll say that confidently. But I'm sure a lot of private interest will show up if we begin to look at these kind of things. One more thing again, let us not be unfair to the hotel industry. We've talked a lot about it. We haven't talked about hotels. And I'm not going to go to Abuja knowing that I'm okay flying on the airline if I can't go into a hotel and feel confident that when I lie in the sheets and the pillow is not giving me, COVID-19, so to speak. So also the challenges that the hotels face. A lot of our hotels are shut down. Our major hotels here in Nigeria, they're all shut down and they're bleeding seriously. And they have zero income, just like the airlines do. So the whole industry is affected. So as we talk about these things, let's look at the beginning from when I leave my home to my destination and back again. How do we ensure that that itself is being taken care of? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Folusho Phillips, for that. And at this point, I would let Mr. Yomi Jones to speak as a former managing director of Adefope, Nigerian Airways, and equally a member of IoD. He's an expert in the aviation industry. Let's hear from his perspective based on the topic we're discussing at hand today. Over to you, Mr. Yomi Jones.
Thank you Banki, thank you very much, and thanks to the panelists. I'm so impressed, and this is one of the best events I've had during this COVID thing.
Oh, thank you very much for that.
It's been like we had another one at the Institute yesterday too, but this is a fantastic one. And I, first of all, would like to say thanks to the Qatar Airways guy for telling us that inside an aircraft, you are even safer than walking around. And I want Folusho, please, to take note. Ibom Air and Uyo Airport, yes, that is government owned. That is government owned, and we have to be careful. America is giving grants to its major carriers. They can afford it. Can we afford something for our major domestic carriers? Those Sanusi can tell us something. I know they are bleeding because I belong partly to Medview Airlines too. And I see Nigeria. It's not that government cannot do this, or the airports have to be sold. To who, when, and how? It is the same guys who are just ruining the system. I can tell you because there are some things as a former government official that I can say publicly about how Nigerian Airways died. He died, yes. Why did he die? It's well known. And like Gabriel Olowo said, we needed not to have just a single carrier moving from point A to point B or something. We needed an aviation or airline business, which includes cargo and the others. We had six subsidiaries at Nigerian Airways. And what happened? One of them was just recently sold for billions of naira. Nobody talks about that. It was a former Nigerian parastatal. I wish you well, and thank you for a good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yomi Jones. Before I allow the next person to speak, in the person of Fumi Babintina-Shaye, before you speak, our panelists, I have questions dropping left, right, and center, and I don't possibly think we can take everything, but if you can look into your chat box, you will see some of these questions, and you can just go ahead and give response to, there are some of them that have been directed at each of the panelists. Just go ahead and respond to the attendees that is asking the questions so that we can cover as much ground as possible. If you can do that for us, we will appreciate it. Thank you very much. Fumi Babintina-Shaye, over to you, please. Is Fumi there? Hello? Hello, is Fumi there? Okay, I guess we've lost her. Let me take some of the questions here. We have.
Yeah, do you allow me to talk, Banky?
Who is that, sir?
Dr. Gabriel.
Oh yes, Dr. Olowo, please go ahead. My screen is filled with all the bars. Okay, please go ahead and speak while I look for there's a particular question I'm searching for here. Go ahead, sir. I'll make it very brief, sir. Dr. Olowo, go ahead, sir.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I went to the chat column. I've been trying to respond, but I don't know why it's not responding here. The data I gave at the beginning of my discussion, rather than 30, actually it was 3% for Nigeria. World average is 1.5. 1.5. So it validates that argument that our case in Nigeria is worse than world average. 1.5 mortality to 3%. Our case is worse off. So we need to know what we are doing to ourselves. I think that case remains valid. The second point I would love to make, and permit me, gentlemen, because I have to quit now, 1:30, I have another meeting, is that travel certificate has always been part of travel. Travel certificate. That's what we call yellow card. I think Port Health should revisit that quickly. Coronavirus, the highest symptom is all this: you have cold, you have catarrh, you have temperature. If we can, try to go to Port Health 2-3 days before we travel. If you have any symptom, you don't come to the airport. Any symptom at all, the slightest symptom, the slightest. Get that done by Port Health, and then you can leave that just for 72 hours. So that at least we have a very high percentage of possibility of the guy coming to the airport not being an index case. That could be, I think we could consider that. Go back to the certificate, valid only for 70 hours, with Port Health certification, no symptom at all. Because the test of COVID itself is 20 days. I mean, and we don't even, we don't even have those test materials. They're not even in sufficient quantity. So the slightest symptom, don't proceed to the airport. That will enhance safety for the traveling public. On that note, I beg to quit. I've enjoyed every minute that I spent here, and I wish all the participants and the listeners a very good session as we continue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Olowo. We really appreciate your contribution, and we will let you have details of every other discussion after your absence from this platform. Thank you very much for that. Captain Sanusi, can you please make another remark based on what we're talking about? I want you to look at something, and this is it. In those days before we had the lockdown, where everybody tries to make their trip out of Abuja on Friday evening. When you get to the airport, either Thursday or Friday, for anyone that is familiar with it, the domestic wing is always jam-packed. You get into traffic before you get to the airport. You have some boys trying to help you pick your luggage so that you can make the flight. You get into the, after doing your check-in, you get into the waiting lounge where a lot of passengers are. Even in the VIP lounge, it's crowded. Now, how are we going to handle all this in the post-COVID? What's going to happen? Are we going to now start limiting the number of people that gain access into the check-in lounge? Or how is it going to be? Because if we're talking that if you're talking about contactless, I don't think it's going to be possible in Nigeria. and I want you to speak in that regard. Captain Ado Sanusi, over to you, please.
Yeah, thank you, Bankole. But before I go into that, I would like to quickly discuss something on that I saw on the net that's going about the kind of palliatives or support that the government should give to private airlines in aid money to private airlines. I believe it's a good idea, and I believe it should be looked at. But we have seen over the time how intervention funds have been shared in aviation sector, which actually cause more problems sometimes to the airlines than solving the problems. So I think there should be a holistic approach to this. And I believe this is the only silver line that I can see is that we can have a reset of the aviation international carrier now. And so what the money that will be given to the airlines to support them, whether we can bring them together, and then government should have a substantial something formidable with the private sector, of course, driving it, because I don't think the government can drive aviation, especially.
Are you done? Or you
airline business. To look at if federal government's billion, they show that they have to do. So, but let me discuss the issue of the Fridays out of Abuja. Usually it's very, very hectic for passengers, and it's going to be a challenge and contactless. I don't think it's going to be possible to do physical distancing in the terminal that we have post-COVID. It is to hardware that can actually tell you that this is the time we have given you to come and check in. And let's say we have 20 people coming in at a particular flight. And there are times that we give them to choose to check in for a 1 or 2 o'clock flight. And he missed that 1:30, then he should go to the next slot. And he might even lose the flight entirely. So those are the things that we're looking at. People will say, oh no, it's going to be difficult on the air. But remember, before 9/11, we used to go to the airport 10, 15 minutes before flights. Now, going to airports 30 minutes, 40 minutes before flight, post-flight. And then, can you hear me now?
Yes, Captain, your network is really bad. It keeps fading on and off. You know, we had some, we didn't hear better parts of it. You know.
Okay, let me repeat. The as I said, we're going to deploy, you have a 1 o'clock flight, and then you will probably come in at 1:30, and group of 20s or 10s or whatever, that's the technology we'll to the airports, probably 2 hours. Now people will say, oh no, we don't want to do that. But remember, before 9/11, we were coming to airports 15 minutes before flight. And we have to come to flights now 45 to 1 hour. Maybe post-COVID, we'll be coming to airports probably 2 hours before a flight to ensure that physical distancing and to ensure that people are checked in at different times.
All right, Captain, thank you very much for that. I'm sure that you agree with me that it will require a lot of reorientation of our people, changing their mindset, and so many other things will have to go into place before all those things can actually be. But on that note, I'll move to the next speaker. Lola, you were going to address the issue of accommodation thing that was raised by Mr. Folusho Phillips and Folorunsho Koka. Please go ahead and speak.
Absolutely. I found it quite amusing, and it is actually a worry that we will travel safely through an airport, we will leave our homes, travel safely through a vehicle only to get to our accommodation and catch COVID. One of the key things that I know that the hospitality and hotel and accommodation industry are seriously looking at is to encourage passengers to check in to their facilities before arriving, the same way that they've previously been certified for being a 4-star hotel or a 5-star property, is the same way that the governing bodies are also now looking at their health and hygiene certification. So when passengers are actually online or talking to their agents and making their reservations, they can not only see the star rating for the comfort of the property, they'll also be able to see the hygiene and safety rating. They are limiting the amount of people that they can have in check-in lobbies, and also changing the ways in which the restaurant seating and food services is actually delivered. But one of the key things that we're actually seeing in the industry as well is a move for leisure travelers away from mega resorts, and the focus, especially for corporate travelers as well, the focus on villa stays or on smaller business hotels, looking at the Airbnb structure or at serviced apartments. People are going to try and limit the amount of contact they have during their accommodation, and we're going to see a move towards more luxurious but remote accommodation as opposed to mega properties, which have been churning a lot of volume in the past. But like we said, it takes all of us in this sector working together, sending out communications, just as Mr. Churchill had said about the airlines, so that passengers have all the information in the palm of their hand prior to even leaving their home for that trip or before they take the trip. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Bernard Karani, can you please speak now? Bernard. Is Bernard still there?
Yes, good afternoon.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, good afternoon. Please speak. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, sir. No, sorry, I think I missed a bit of the conversation due to network. But one of the things that I wanted to raise here was that we are not regarding the travel that is yet, and we are talking about post-COVID and the possibilities of the airport opening and the flights taking off. I think as far as the travel agent fraternity is concerned, for us to be engaged, apart from one option which was given that we should go on to a possible business of cargo by SEBA, it is equally important that the airlines now start engaging themselves with the so-called evacuation flights, because and engaging themselves with the embassies, which will have, because already the embassies are selling, and there is commercial value to the evacuation flights, which ideally, if we looked at the past, evacuation flights had no value to the end user. Today, evacuation flights are paid for, so there is commercial value. The commercial value is going maybe directly to the government or the embassy, respective embassies, and the airline. So what's happening is you have such huge flux of people being, logistics being moved around the world, and the travel agent fraternity is earning absolutely nothing from it. So I think that perspective, looking at a solution from that perspective, from the downstream perspective, is really very important. So I would really have like to hear some comments on that as an option of how to survive in this industry at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bernard Karani. It just throws light into what I really want to ask each of the panelists to dwell upon in the next few minutes, which I'll give them a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes to talk about. There's no doubt that there's a new normal. Let's forget about the past. The past is not going to be again. There's a new normal, and the new normal is this. How are things going to be going forward? Not in comparison with the past, but the way they're going to be. I want us to task ourselves mentally on what the new normal will be. And I'll start with Mr. Folusha Phillips. What is the new normal, or what do you expect the new normal to be? Is the new normal going to be that everything is going to be driven by technology? Is the new normal going to be that there will be absolutely no contact, human contact again? Is the new normal going to be tourism is just going to be in the virtual and no longer physical visitation? Please, I would like you to speak from that perspective of the new normal.
Yeah, thanks, Bankole. That's a tough one. And I think all over the world, people are sort of discovering as we go along. I can tell you that nobody knows the answer. And depending on which part of the world you live in, the answers can be very, very different. The more sophisticated part of the world can begin to look at very, very sophisticated digital solutions and space age solutions. I was talking to a young nephew of mine that was using from a digital point of view that had this virtual visual camera thing whereby he put on his head and he was transported in principle to a different part of the world. Yes, maybe that's the way people are going to be living in the future. But to talk realistically for our own reality here in Nigeria, again, I go to it, I'm very, very concerned about the life of people from a safety point of view, but also from a livelihood point of view. We see people in the industry are really stuck, both the entertainment, the hospitality, the travel, hotels, and so on. We're really, really, very stuck, and we don't know what to do. Some people, unfortunately, like I said before, they're going to lose their jobs. That's the new normal. The next thing that's going to happen is that you're going to find that people are going to have to start learning new skills. You just have to start learning new skills. And the new skills that rule today are digital skills. We can't get away from it. People are working from home, and the ability to work from home is based on the fact that they're digitally compliant. Their organization is digitally compliant. The whole ecosystem that companies are setting up is allowing people to begin to work from home. Unfortunately, we can't deliver airline flight services from home, so to speak. But certainly the process that we go through before we physically go to the airport are things that, you know, can become very digitized, and therefore people can work from home. So we need new skills, digital skills. And for people that are moving out, I'm taking it at a much broader economic system. We need to pay attention to our education and health in the country. And one of the things you're going to find is that people are going to have to start moving into, can we play a role in education? Can all the smart people in the different industries that exist now, can they move into enhancing our education system? Can people begin to think of going into health? Our health systems need to be really enhanced. And I tell you, the kind of competence and capability that exists in a very sophisticated airline industry that we all operate can be applied in areas of health as well. Our people can begin to do things. And we're talking about major paradigm shifts. And I tell people, if you imagine what you're doing today and compare it to what you were doing 3 months ago, you see that a lot has happened, and it is not gradual. It's happening literally overnight. We're leapfrogging into a totally different world. So I talked earlier on about regional hubs, about privatizing airports, and the response was that, you know, if you only knew. And I'm saying what happens today has got nothing to do with what has happened in the past. The things that we're going to start doing, you'll be amazed. Part of my new norm in Nigeria is I look seriously at saying how we can begin to privatize airports. And I use the word privatize in terms of having extremely sophisticated airports that can cope with the level of sophistication we need to give people the confidence to begin to fly again. And I'm telling you that when a man puts his money into something and he wants some return on investment, he's going to pay attention to the efficiency. And this is not about getting donations and getting loans, or he is going to be putting some equity into it. And I don't want to go into all that, but I say that it's a very serious thing. So the new norm for us is, yes, how can we make airline travel comfortable? How can we make it a new experience for people? How can we build the confidence of people to be able to go in there and say, yes, I'm going to begin to fly. I will be particular about my health, but more and more we're getting news that there might be ways around it. It will get better. We will get to understand this disease a lot more than we currently know. we are learning every day. And each time you listen to the major stations around the world on television, we seem to be learning new things. And this is almost like a voyage of discovery. But the point is, people have got to feel confident enough to go out there, go through the whole process of flying in and out of a particular place. People have got to feel confident enough to say, yes, I'm going to go on a vacation because the system around that gives me the confidence that I'm going to be safe. And we can't, there's no magic silver bullet. We have to evolve and discover how these things are going to help us to give that confidence. But whether you like it or not, we have to try and see how we engage our people, the airline industry, the entertainment industry. You're going to lose people, people in terms of jobs. It's a reality. So let's face it and begin to look at the alternatives that exist. Even the most sophisticated systems we're encouraging, some people are not going to be relevant anymore. They will not be able to cope with this that we're doing. So these are real things that we have to face. But as far as I'm concerned, the government itself is already saddled with a lot, with greater challenges that I believe that it can begin to step away from things that the private sector can do. Obviously, I'm a very private sector driven person. I mentioned about Aviation Air. Well, yes, it is government owned at the moment, but who says it cannot change its mode of ownership in the future when it is seen to be something that is more interesting for the private sector to participate in? So let us lessen the burden of government. Let us let government do those things that are, from a priority point of view, more important to society, and let those of us that can get involved in this and help to alleviate its challenges, let us get into it and begin to do it. So I'm not saying aviation is not important, but let the private sector participate and let government focus on those things that improve the quality of life of our people, education, health, infrastructure, and those other things. That for me is the new norm. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Mr. Folusho Phillips. Lola, can I take from your perspective what the new norm will be, considering the fact that Mr. Folusho Phillips has laid emphasis on key areas? Definitely, there's going to be a job loss. There's going to be job losses. There's no way we're going to rule that out. There's going to be new skills. He mentioned that as well. New skills are coming up. So some skills are naturally going to die away and we're never going to get to hear about them again. And he spoke about digital transformation. That, I mean, a lot of things are going to be done in the digital way, and he laid emphasis on education. So I want you to pick from a different perspective from what he has considered as his own new norm. So what do you consider, or what do you think will be the new norm, the new normal rather, in this dispensation?
Well, I am quite conscious of time, so I'll keep it quite brief. However, the new normal, from my perspective and from the perspective of business travel management, our company is actually very passenger focused. So the new normal will actually be utilizing technology as a fulcrum for all-inclusive packages and customer service. We cannot develop technology without processes and policies in place first. That'll be putting the cart behind the horse. What you need to do is ensure that we have an education process and platform in place so that people understand the risks of travel and also understand the safety measures that are being put in place. Then have technology support that on a level that can then push notifications to people directly through their handheld mobile devices. We have a very deep penetration of mobile technology in Nigeria and in Africa. We actually leapfrogged over the laptop generation. So people will be able to access technology and notifications and information much faster. We're going to see a move during the new normal to much smaller groups when it comes to actual leisure travel. But leisure travel isn't going to develop immediately internationally. What we have to do is we have to look at and develop domestic tourism, put in processes, policies, and practices locally before we open up our borders to regional and continental tourism and then international tourism, learning from the development of these sectors. We're going to see a change, a move from longer distance travel very frequently to a lot more to a lot more time spent at the destination. People are going to more constantly research and carefully consider the destinations they're going to and spend more time there. More emphasis is going to be put on careful travel. Just as Mr. Jones had said previously, I believe that what we're now doing is we're going to be selling safety as well as comfort and luxury and those travel processes. And compliance, health and safety compliance in every sector is now going to be key. That is what the new normal is going to be, from everything from airport movement, passenger traffic, foot traffic, seating on board, accommodation, and also leisure tourism. The focus is going to be on health, safety, and hygiene compliance moving forward. That's going to be normal.
Well, thank you very much, Lola, from your perspective. If Mr. Folorunso Koka is still there, I'm sure he will be elated to hear that there's a change to focus on domestic tourism by making sure that people partake more in domestic tourism, but part of what you have said. And you equally said something very vital, which is making safety, health and safety a product, because every consumer now will want to see what level of health and safety consciousness you have to give to them. Otherwise, they're probably going to go next door. If you don't have health in place, then probably patronize you. Thank you very much from that angle. I'll move next to Kennedy. Kennedy, what will the new normal be to you? You're muted.
Thank you, Bankole.
Okay, Kennedy,
I can hear you. Thank you. The new normal will come with a bit of changes, as has been said by other panelists. It's totally a paradigm shift in terms of airline preparation, check-in preparations, together with also the agencies, how the agencies will interact with their customers and also with the airline. We see a lot going to be moving to digital space, whereby the interaction on one face-to-face will basically disappear. Most of the clients will be on digital platform looking for what offers are available. We see also in terms of check-in processes together with the civil aviation and airport authorities, there will be a lot of requirements, additional requirements. For example, in terms of turnaround aircraft, most airlines or some airlines do the turnaround within 1 hour when they land at the airport. Maybe the requirement will be 2-3 hours so that proper hygiene measures are taken in place. We see, even in terms of connectivity, when you're connecting to a certain hub to an end destination, those hubs will have their own procedures, which also would mean that the connectivity will not be an hour connectivity to end destination. When you arrive to another hub, maybe they will put a stringent and processes where there will be a bit longer flight hours and flight timing in terms of travel. So yes, this is something that is going to happen, and this would not stop people from traveling for sure. Thank you.
We're still we're talking that your airline has one of the longest air flight from Sydney to New York, which is about 17.5 hours, if I'm correct. Hello, Kennedy. The longest flight. So now, what is going to happen in this new dispensation? Are they still going to have such long flights, considering the fact that there's going to be a lot of lavatory usage, catering in flight? There's going to be contact in one way or the other. So I want you to shed light in that regard.
Yes, those long flights will still be in place, as we've been shared even before by Captain Sunu is saying very clearly that at the aircraft inside is one of the most safest in terms of the air conditioning. Aircraft are really sanitized every time it lands into an airport. I mean, it's not like a supermarket where they clean once or twice a day. Aircrafts are cleaned every time today, if a flight lands in Lagos, it has to be first cleaned properly and a process put in place. Long flights, yes, could be potentially that would not have to fly full load. Maybe would do 90%. Of course, in terms of also catering, we have those long flights. We normally have 2 or 3 crew schedules where we have crew that does maybe 3-4 hours. They go to rest. Another set of crew take over. So with that perspective, we do not see any big impact in terms of these long flights as such.
All right. Thank you very much from your perspective. Captain Ado Sanusi, can we have what your new normal will be? Let me unmute. Okay. Okay, now I can hear you. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. I think the new normal has been elaborated by all the speakers, the panelists well. But one of the things that I will add is the new normal will be passengers traveling will have to be fit. They have to make sure that they don't have high temperature. And the yellow card that we have for yellow fever will be COVID-19 cards. That's what I can see. To international, but we are even trying to produce that for the local, so that we know that there is, in the moment there is a vaccine, we know that people are vaccinated or they are tested for it. I think those are the things that we will be seeing in the nearby future. Talking about immediate post-COVID, I think there will be regulars, of course, passengers will have to arrive earlier than normal, usually an hour, and passengers should definitely expect delays. That will be the new normal, because we will have to sanitize the airplane every time it lands. Our turnaround times of 30 minutes for a domestic flight will be something around 1 hour, 30 minutes. There will be panics, because if a passenger sneezes in an airplane, everybody will take cover. So those are the new normals that I can see. But we will have to work hard to psychologically educate the passengers and tell them that, as I said, it is the aircraft is the safest place to be. In fact, you are better off in an aircraft than in a banking hole, as I've said. So those are the new normals I can see. The physical distancing will not happen inside the aircraft. It can't.
Okay, it won't?
Yeah.
That's a confirmation from you that physical distancing wouldn't happen in the aircraft, because we've had some airlines send out circulars, that airlines like Delta Airlines saying that the middle seat is not going to be occupied. So if the middle seat is not going to be occupied, it means the aircraft is going to be taking about 50% load factor. So if you are confirming to us that this is the position that is going to take, that the middle seat will not be there, and there won't be need for face mask. Are you confirming those two positions? Social distancing will not be necessary in the aircraft, and there won't be need for face mask on the aircraft. Can you elaborate more on that, please? Or Kennedy, you want to talk about that?
Yes, I don't believe that there will be any social distance adherence in terms of in the airlines, because when you look at someone said earlier, airlines are operating at a very small margins. It's almost impractical to to remove a seat and operate at 50% and make profits. So the only thing that I presume would be the measures that it's already been elaborated to ensure that hygiene is kept on board. the air circulation on board is already in good condition. Basically, just to bring confidence, we would ask that passengers wear masks. Our crew, of course, crews will also have protective gears, so to say.
Okay. Yeah. And Captain Sanusi shares that view as well. Oh, he's gone.
No. I think I'm back.
Okay, you're back. Do you share that view as well?
Yes, I think there will be a lot of course, I didn't discuss what will happen with the crew. There will be a lot of, the new normal for the crew is that they will be wearing a lot of
protective gear.
Yes, there's going to be, of course, the cockpit and the cabin crew will have to be trained for the PPE equipment removal, and they will have to be trained for in case somebody sneezes. There will be an isolation, probably center where you will have to isolate a person in an aircraft in case he has shown symptoms of maybe coughing, high temperature, the rest. But these are the things that we will learn as we start the flight.
All right. Thank you very much, our panelists, for doing justice to this particular topic. You've all been extremely wonderful. Thank you so much to IoD for giving us this platform to share great ideas that we've shared with our audience, that have been able to ask several questions as it affects what they do and how things are going to be is for certain is that the aircrafts are going to get in the air soon. We're all still going to fly. Our life will not degenerate, but we're going to do things differently. We're going to adapt so quickly to the new norm, which we've all been confronted with. We're going to do a whole lot of things in the digital way than ever before. The crowd at the restaurants are going to reduce, and there's going to be a lot and lots of home delivery of the same restaurant food. Physical contact will reduce, but I don't think to that level where life will become unbearable. I'm equally of the view that the pandemic will end up being an endemic. It's just going to be one of the diseases we've had and we've come to live with. I think that COVID-19 will stay, and we'll just forget. It will no longer be a threat to life as we're having it now. It will come, it will stay, and we'll all live beyond it and leave COVID-19 behind. You've all contributed in several ways, even though there's an aspect which Captain Sanusi did not mention. Maybe 2 minutes, you just talk about this. Some of the questions that have been asked is about collaboration, cooperation, and consolidation of the domestic carriers, that we are all fringe players. Some of the local airlines have just 2 aircrafts, some with 3 aircrafts. You can barely survive. Now, can't we have a situation where we have the airlines in Nigeria reduced to about 2 or 3, and they can all work effectively to give the kind of service that we get outside the country? What do you have to say about that, Captain Sanusi, in 2-3 minutes, so that we can wrap up this session?
Okay, you're giving me a topic of 3 hours and 2 minutes. I will try and do justice to it.
Captain.
Maybe the captain can
consolidation of
his video to allow
and as I said, it's not like consolidation of bags. It should attention, because there are 2 cultures that you are bringing together. But it's a time for us to actually look at whether it can be done, and we should have a body that will usher that. And I agree with majority of Nigerians asking, rather than having 9 airlines that are barely surviving, Why don't we have 3 basic airlines that are strong? After all, it's done in the banking system and it worked very well. But it was done by the regulator that was very strong and that did that. Now, most of the airlines are, of course, people own those businesses. So it's difficult to match them. But if you have a strong regulator that can put the ingredients in, that can put I would say the carrots for them to come together, I think it's a good way to move forward. We are already doing that now. I'm championing for the post-COVID. We're looking at collaboration with all the airlines. Aero Contractors is looking at collaborating with code sharing with Arik, code sharing with Dana, code sharing with Asman, Max Air, all the airlines. Where I cannot fly the passengers, we give it to the other carrier, because we all want the airline, the industry to survive. So yes, definitely I believe that mergers should happen, but we should be very careful doing the mergers. We should have a strong regulator. I wish my friend Captain Musa was here. I would have said this is the time that we should come up with some kind of guidelines and incentives for these airlines to merge, and for government to also play a role in it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Captain Ado Sanusi. I'm sure that IoD, which is all corporate governments, they've all heard you, and we're going to bring this up again. Truth is, concentration within the aviation industry, especially the domestic carriers of Nigeria, that will some sense of safety that are financially strong and they could ground. IoD, the best, will be able to still invite you once again to come and talk in this regard, as well as Kennedy coming from his own perspective. While I'm rounding this up, let me say that it's been a wonderful time spending this wonderful people from Mr. Folusha Phillips that brought his wealth of experience to bear on this platform, to Lola that's giving us insight into corporate travels and how things are going to be going forward, to Captain Ado Sanusi that has shown that strong light into the domestic flights in Nigeria, to Kennedy, one of the major carriers, foreign airlines in Nigeria. Thank you so much for all this. At this point, I'll allow the chairman of the tourism and hospitality to take over to speak on this. Thank you very much. Over to you, ma'am.
All right, so thank you very much. Yes, so thank you very much, distinguished panelists.
Ayo, can I interrupt you?
Okay, all right. Okay, then. Sorry.
I do apologize.
Chairman, can you hold on? The president was...
I just want to say one thing, and I think it concerns everybody. Please do forgive me. And you know, about 5 years or so ago, Phillips Consulting, we conducted an aviation industry survey, which was a document that helped the aviation industry a lot. It's not a report that is sold, but it's one that gave you a lot of information to the aviation industry. At the moment, we're right in the middle of doing the same survey. And I want to try and encourage everybody to participate, because the outcome of this survey is public knowledge. The document itself is provided to all agencies, airlines, government. And I think it's a kind of collective contribution we can all make to try and see how we can make that particular industry move up a bit more. So I just want to encourage you, you can go to our website. It's a public survey. It's something that is of value to everybody, and it's a pretty comprehensive one based on the success of the last one. So I do encourage you all, even through the IoD, to please try and participate in this survey. It speaks a lot to the issues that we've discussed, and I think it will help us all in the future. So thanks, and I do apologize for that advert, but it's for everybody's benefit and not just ours. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much, distinguished panelists. Thank you for sharing your perspectives with us. We've been greatly enriched by this. I'd like to call on Otumba Ayo Olumoko, who is the Vice Chairman of the Tourism and Hospitality Committee of the Institute of Directors, to give his vote, to give the vote of thanks. And then afterwards, Mr. Dele Alimi, the Director General, will then give us some few tips.
Otumba, over to you now. Otumba Olumoko, you can speak now.
Hello, Otumba, you have the floor.
Yeah, hello.
We can hear you, Otumba. Can you proceed?
I think he's having a bit of a technical hitch.
Oh,
yeah, hello.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Okay, all right. Go ahead and speak, Otumba.
Hello. Hello.
We can hear you. Just go ahead and speak.
Go ahead and speak.
Votes of thanks, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Bankole Bernard. I want to thank you for a very good job, well done. And then at the same time, we want to thank all our speakers and panelists for all attending this very purposeful event. I want to make bold to say that we did not have anybody sending proxy, and this is the IoD style. I want to thank the President of the Institute of Directors Nigeria, Chief Chris Okunowo, for giving us this opportunity and for believing in us, even that during this pandemic, that the tourism and hospitality hotel, can do something which is very monumental. At the same time, I want to equally thank all the members of the Tourism and Hospitality Subcommittee for their being there for us and being painstakingly ensuring that this event, really become fruitful. And also at the same time, I equally want to, on behalf of our chairman and the Tourism and Hospitality Committee, thank most profusely the Director General of IoD Nigeria with his staff for ensuring that we have very nice administrative support. This has been a very insightful event, and we hope that to you, our speakers and panelists, Dr. Olowo, Mr. Felicia Phillips, Ms. Lola, Adefope, Captain Sanusi, and Ken, we hope that when next we call you after this post-COVID, you will physically honor us again. We appreciate all that you've done, and thank you very, very much. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Otumba Olumoko. Now we will let the president, the DG of IoD to speak and close this session.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to have been here with you in the last 2 hours or thereabouts. I want to say a very big thank you. Join, of course, every other person that has thanked the panelists for the very insightful interventions we've heard from them. I want to thank all the participants too. We thank you for staying with us. And we know this is a very, very topical matter. We know that one of the hardest hit sectors after on this COVID-19 episode is the aviation sector, which is almost grounded to zero. And I want to say that I've seen from the chart that some of the participants are concerned about some of the questions raised, which would have been taken by the DG of NCAA. We will do our best to see how we can harvest those questions, send it to him, and if we can get responses, we can send to the participant by email. We'll do our best to do that. And I want to say a big thank you. And I want to implore everyone, this is IoD Nigeria. It's the haven for directors. And for those of you who are here today and you are not members of the Institute, this is an opportunity to join. You can visit our website, www.iodnigeria.org, and all the details you need to know are there. And be that as it may, I want to say again that this is not going to be the last in the series of webinars that the Institute is going to be hosting. Very soon, we will be coming next week by His Grace, which will be coming with something that will deal with the stakeholders or shareholders relationship, especially for public limited companies at this time, the implications of the COVID-19 experience and how organizations can manage. So we want to bring in directors, I want to bring in board gurus, and of course, shareholders themselves, so that we can see how we can manage that relationship as part of our role for director engagement. We'll also be doing something on cyber security, especially now that we are all on digital platforms. We must not lose focus about the implications for security in terms of security of meetings, securities of whatever actions we are taking over the net. We've been here for quite a while, and I want to say thank you to everybody. It's been wonderful. I look forward to seeing you again at our next webinar. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a very wonderful weekend. And please keep safe. Continue to keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, our moderator.
Thank
you, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lola.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lola.